Oh man, coming up next, we have a special treat for you. The story of an all-time classic rock standard from both its iconic singer and its iconic guitarist who both wrote it. It's one of the 80s greatest anthems. Now, each of these guys had a great song. Then they pretty much put the two songs together and combined it into one with dual experiences, mind you. The guitarist said it came from a fan who stood for 5 hours in the rain to get tickets to their sold-out show. But then the iconic vocalist said it came from his own experience standing outside a sold-out concert hall where he was not able to see Jimi Hendrix perform. Many rock singers have called this the most challenging song to sing ever. Most just can't hit the notes, but boy, did this guy do it. Even though he had to fight a legendary producer tooth and nail to get it just right, because this producer wanted him to be something he wasn't. And man, this song sold 1 million copies 25 years apart. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you collected Kenner Star Wars action figures as a kid, play with them, you're going to dig this channel of nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the bell so that you always know when our new interviews and videos drop. So it's time for another edition of our series, Number One in Our Hearts, where we celebrate a song that absolutely should have been a #1 hit, but it came up short due to various reasons. This is one of the most powerful rock songs ever put to record. You know, before and after an interview, when the cameras are off, I ask a couple of questions to singers and songwriters, just because I'm curious. I don't necessarily want to put it on camera, but I ask them, one question I ask a lot is, what do you think is the most difficult rock song for a singer to sing? And you know what? I hear this one all the time. You know what it is. It came from the blockbuster album 4, camped out at #1 on the albums chart for months. I'm talking about Juke Box Hero from Foreigner 4. Written by the no-holds-barred scorched earth singer Lou Gramm and Uber producer legendary multi-instrumentalist Mick Jones. A band that has sold 80 million records. They had 17 big hits that are still played on radio every day. This song came from both singer and guitarist Lou and Mick, having a different experience but similar in subject. Mick invited a kid who had waited 5 hours in the pouring rain to try and get tickets to the sold-out Foreigner show backstage. He brought him backstage. He showed this kid everything that went on. Before the concert, he got to meet everybody. And he said this kid had that look in his eye that inspired Mick to go write this song. And then Lou Gramm had the same experience, but he was the kid, you know, outside looking in. He wanted to go to a Jimi Hendrix show as a teenager, but didn't have a ticket, so he dreamed of being on that stage, and boy, would he ever soon. So they each had a part of a song and then combined it to create one of the, like I said, the biggest rock showstoppers ever. It became a live staple, and it actually only peaked at number 26 on the pop charts, but it did go to number 3 on the rock charts. What Lou and Mick share here is really cool. Lou butted heads with legendary producer Mutt Lange. You know, Mutt was trying to push him to sing like Bon Scott because he'd just worked with AC/DC. But Lou had different ideas. He'll tell you coming up next. Last of all, the song would go gold and help the album Foreigner 4 sell 6 million copies in the US and around 10 million worldwide. But decades later, the song would sell 1 million copies digitally. One of only a few rock songs to do that. Here's the interview. So Juke Box Hero, this song, just music history's ultimate rock song for me. It's so much bigger than its chart position. It went to number 26 on the charts, but this was a song that, you know, if they played it on a morning radio, it was going to wake you up. It's just such an incredible song. I know that you're really proud of this one. Came from your own experience. That's why I think the vocal has so much power. It's because we've all, as rock and roll fans, been there where we want to get to that show. We want to go to the sold-out show, and we're kind of on the outside looking in. And you had that experience. Tell me about writing Juke Box Hero.
Well, it was based on an experience that I had in Rochester when I was about 14 or 15 years old, and Jimi Hendrix was playing at the Rochester War Memorial. And I wanted to see him in that show very badly. and didn't have a ticket and didn't have money, and didn't have the okay from my mom and dad to go down there at all, you know. And I'd already had one experience hitchhiking to the War Memorial to see the Stones in 1965. Yep. And so there I was again about a year and a half later.
Didn't you take off when the Rolling Stones, you were going to go to the Rolling Stones, and your parents were like, get back here, right?
Oh, yeah. I was, right after I asked my parents if I could see them, and they said no. And I excused myself from the dinner table, went upstairs, got ready. And at some point, I just ran down the stairs and ran out the door and ran down the street. And when I was approaching the end of the street, I heard way off in the distance, "Louis, I'm gonna kill you."
Your dad.
Yeah, and I started laughing, a little hysterically, you know, because I know he would kill me. You know?
Yeah.
But it was too late. I was already taking the risk.
And then later you opened for the Rolling Stones. That's what was cool.
Yes, isn't that something?
Yeah, that's amazing. It came all the way back around.
So this time I didn't say anything. I just left. You know, didn't announce it, just left. And didn't meet up with anybody. I was completely by myself. And I had an old beat-up leather jacket on and a knit hat. And had no clue as to how I was going to get in the War Memorial. It was not only sold out, but even if there were tickets left, I didn't have the money for them. So I went by the backstage door, and every time they would open a door to let a guest in, you know, somebody with a backstage pass, I would get a 15 or 20 second glimpse of Hendrix and his band on stage. And to me, that was worth it. It was just so awesome that I would have stayed there all night watching little segments of that, you know. But at some point, believe it or not, the crowd, which was pretty whacked that particular night in Rochester, lit the seat cushions on fire up in the balcony, and they stopped the show.
Wow.
Yep.
Hendrix, fire, the two go together really well.
So I mean, I treasure those experiences.
Yeah.
In my younger years, when I, you know, was desperate to see my rock heroes, and financially was out of my element.
Well, and also when you're drumming along the Beatles songs in your basement as a kid, dreaming of being on that stage. That's what's so great about those lyrics, is that comes out. You're able to assimilate that through your performance and the lyrics and the way that you emote this incredible song that we've all felt a part of.
I knew at that age that a lot of the artists from that time period were only around for an album or two, then they were gone, you know. I mean, things moved very quickly in that era. You know, there were stars, then they were gone, then there were new stars, and they were gone. You know, so I knew that if I didn't see Hendrix then, chances are I'd never see him. And felt the same way about the Stones. Although I was dead wrong about the Stones, wasn't I?
They've been around a while, yeah, man. That's right. Well, you know, Juke Box Hero, I think I mentioned this before, but I was talking to a friend who's a lead singer in a band and sing some pretty tough songs, and we were talking about the hardest song to sing in rock and roll, and we came up with Juke Box Hero. We thought that would be the most difficult song because of the notes you're hitting, but also the grit when you hit those notes and the fever, you know, that goes into that song, the range, the tone, all of it. How did you learn to sing like that? It's like superhuman.
The song, I mean, it just took that path when I was working on it, and I was very blessed that I was able to hit the notes that I wrote, you know, or I would have had to disassemble the song and make it something else. But I was very fortunate to be able to go from that real low down, standing in the rain, that real hunkered down beginning,
standing in the rain,
to the gotta keep a rockin',
ain't never gonna stop, gotta keep a rockin'.
And I think that between the initial verse, that second section that I just sang a little bit, and the Juke Box Hero, there's 3 very dynamic sections to that song. It makes the song really come alive, I think.
Well, and it's really your signature song because it's talking about you. It's talking about your own experiences that you wrote down and performed it, and it's you.
When I first started working on that song, I was working on it in my first little cottage that I had bought, and I was in a damp basement, and I had my set of drums from when I used to play years ago set up down there, and a TX 4-track. The TX 4-track machines? Yeah, nice machines. I had saved my money and bought one of those, and recorded the drums first. And I couldn't play guitar to save my life, so I recorded the guitar parts on a synthesizer. And then started working on some of the lyrics and stuff like that, to the point where I'm talking about 2.5, 3 years later, I finally had the nerve to play the idea for Mick. I mean, I worked on that song to get it as far as I could take it, and I had help from my friend Bruce Turgan, who was the bass player in my bands and stuff. And we worked on that song, and we finally played, a little 35, 40-second demo for Mick, just to see if he had any interest in the song. And he heard it, and he said, pretty good. And that's all he said, But after we started fine-tuning it in earnest, he became very attached to the song also.
Well, and I love how you approached the vocals in that. You talked a little bit about it before, but with Mutt Lange pushing you, a little Bon Scott and everything, I think that your approach was correct, because that's one of those jab, 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 uppercut, and you
knockout punch.
Yeah,
right?
You can't always be at 11.
That's exactly right, and that's kind of working with Bon. I think that's what he wanted to hear for that song, and I said, I don't think so, And I'm glad I didn't let him, as the producer, overrule me as the artist.
Yeah, well, and you were right. 40-something years later now, Juke Box Hero, for my money, that's the best track on 404. That's the rock and roll explosion, right?
Thanks, I agree. And there's some mighty tracks on that album.
Oh, yeah. Some of the greatest ever. But Juke Box Hero is a standout, and it was just it's just a grab you by the throat rocker.
Whenever I perform, when I play that song, the first 2 or 3 notes, the doom, doom, and the audience is screaming. Don't even have to get into any chords or any keyboard pads or anything. Just the doom, doom, and they're screaming.
Oh yeah. Well, in 1981, you released 404, which is one of the biggest records ever. I mean, #1 for 10 weeks. Classic album cover. I was just wearing the shirt yesterday with the 4 on it. I mean, 7 times platinum, and of course, you produced it with the great Mutt Lange. I want to talk about one of the singles that came from that, one of the greatest rock anthems in radio history, Juke Box Hero. Went to number 26 in the pop charts, but I mean, Mick, that was a song that was so much bigger than its chart position. And of course, it was inspired by a real experience that you had in Cincinnati. Tell us about that.
That's right. We were playing in Cincinnati. We went to the show early on in the afternoon to do a sound check, and it was pouring down rain, and you know, there were a bunch of fans outside getting soaking wet, and so we did the sound check and came back after, you know, later for the show, and there's one guy who was still out there. He hadn't managed to get an autograph the first time, and he was still there, and he was soaking wet.
Standing in the rain.
And so we took him into the backstage with us, just really to dry him off, let him have a chance to dry himself off. And then, you know, he was so starstruck. You know, he was so, you know, we let him stand on the side of the stage during the set. We even rustled a few groupies up to make a fuss of him. And he got the whole 9 yards, you know. So it was, and watching him going through this gave me the idea, you know, about the fantasy of being a rock star. You know, emotional the whole experience can be, you know, the being a musician, you know, just sort of gave him a glimpse of what it was like, you know.
Stars in his eyes.
Absolutely, yeah. That was, it was great, you know. He felt great, you know, and I felt great too, because I got a song out of it.
Yeah. Well, was it true that it was two separate song ideas by you and Lou at one point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, I had the title Juke Box Hero, and we messed around with it, and Lou had a beginning to the song, and that was called Take One Guitar.
Yeah.
So we almost had like two hooks lyrically, and we just worked on it and gelled them together, came up with a couple of other parts, and that was it, you know. And sometimes those things work. You know, you've got a great idea that you're keeping, that you can't, at the time, you can't necessarily put it together. You know, you listen back to your tapes and wherever you've got your ideas hidden, and, you know, put two pieces together to make one great song, you know, and that's really what happened with Juke Box Hero. It's definitely our rock anthem, I would say.
By the way, the top 5 songs on the Billboard charts, Billboard Hot 100, the week that Juke Box Hero peaked at number 26, are as follows. At number 5, you had Make a Move on Me by Olivia Newton-John. At number 4, That Girl by Stevie Wonder. We Got the Beat by the Go-Go's was at number 3. At number 2, you had Open Arms by Journey. And at number 1, you had Joan Jett. She was spending third week of 6 weeks at number 1 with I Love Rock and Roll. I mean, how cool if Joan Jett and Foreigner could have shared the top 2 spots for that week. Hey, just a thought. Make sure to leave us a comment about this amazing song. Lou Gramm, Mick Jones, Foreigner. What do you think is their most what's the most difficult song to sing live, do you think? I'd like to get your opinion on that. What do you think is the hardest rock song to sing? Juke Box Hero's got to be up there for just he goes, it's just the dynamics in that song. Lou Gramm, I think it's his best vocal performance. What do you think? Let us know. If you dig our content, we'd love to have you subscribe below. You hit that red button, and we'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.